strings.
Graham Sheep, principal bassoon of the BBC Symphony Orchestra.
The bassoon actually is really maybe a little bit inside the storm, but what's interesting is there's often something for the bassoons to play in the lead up to the storm and the dying away, because that's something that composers have also had to deal with. You don't just have a storm, it has to develop and then it has to recede, just like it would in nature.
What are then the musical cliches of the storm? What is it that's going to be your tick box? If you want to create a perfect storm, I have to do X, Y, and Z. What are the ingredients?
Yeah, I think the musical cliches that you might pick are low notes. Thunder is the most musically easy storm to represent. So you use the low instruments for thunder, so typically the timpani, and I'm double bassist, and one of the things I thought was, we're always having to do thunder. So, and you use tremolando, so you scrub the string to copy the sounds of thunder, and then fast. The strings and wind instruments usually play fast notes to represent the rain falling and drumming down, and the percussion section can kick in as well.
Chromatic scales are very useful in storm music, and a lot of storms do have a lot of chromatic passages suggesting this constant undulation and impotence, the lack of control one would sort of feel in that, if you're in a small boat in a sort of storm.
We often think of painters, landscape painters, depicting storms, novelists depicting storms. What is it that musicians can bring to bear and how they create a storm? How does the musical imagination work when it comes to storms?
Firstly, as I said, there's mimicry, so you can use the instruments of the orchestra to represent the storm. Also, there are special instruments that have been devised to represent storms, such as a thunder sheet, which is a big sheet metal that you suspend in the percussion section, and you sort of hit it, and it makes a noise like thunder. And also there's a wind machine, which is a sort of roll that's covered with a sheet that you can rotate, and it makes a howling noise like the wind.
Shall we go to Thunder Corner? So this basically is bell percussion in Acton in London, and we're in the stores of their hire department, because although most orchestras own their own timpani and percussion equipment, it's impossible to own every conceivable instrument that you can have.
This is Mick Doran, principal percussionist with English National Opera. He's brought us to bell percussion, where you can find everything from mallets and marimbas to timpani, drum kits, cymbals, and a whole lot more.
So to my right is a wind machine. The wind machine is a large drum made of wooden slats, around which is stretched a piece of canvas, and there's a handle at one end so that I can turn the drum around, rather like someone drawing a tombola at a village fete. But when the slats rub against the canvas, it gives you this sound. And the faster you turn it, the more frantic it gets. And that's exactly the sound that you'll hear in the Alpine Symphony.
Of all the storms in classical music, none is arguably more chillingly real than the one we get hit with in Richard Strauss's Alpine Symphony. As a boy, Strauss was part of a group of climbers who lost their way in the Alps, caught in a violent storm while they were heading up a mountain. Strauss's memory, transformed into a musical evocation of that experience, takes us through every stage of a storm, from the ominous drum roll at the start, little raindrops, flashes of lightning, and then there's a wind machine as we get into the eye of the storm itself. Mick Doran again.
The Alpine Symphony, the storm in there, not only has got this enormous orchestra and creating an extraordinary effect through the use of conventional instruments, but he then puts the icing on the cake with a wind machine and a thunder sheet, and so it's all there in that way. This huge sheet of metal here is a thunder sheet, and it's made of aluminium, very fine aluminium. It's very flexible. If I bend it with my hands, it's very flexible. It's about 6 foot long and approximately 3 foot wide. And what I do is hold the edge towards the centre and wobble it. And so it does a pretty good impersonation of distant thunder. And again, like the wind machine, the more excited you get playing it, the more excited the sound comes out. I think it's an amazing piece. I was very lucky to perform it at the festival hall, and I was playing the wind machine, and I sat waiting for the storm, which is about halfway through the piece, sitting behind the French horn section. I've never experienced anything like it. The sheer drama of being in the middle of this enormous, huge machine that's pumping out a fantastic sound, beautiful music that goes from the quietest pianissimo to the loudest fortissimo. And it's such an extraordinary piece of music, one of my favourites.
Lightning, quite often the piccolo is used for lightning, and
because it's high and shrieky.
it's shrieky. Yeah, I mean, not that of course lightning makes a sound, but I think if you've ever been close to a thunderstorm, you'll know that it can get a little bit scary, because thunder and lightning, the reason that they happen at different times is because sound and light move at different speeds. So light moves very quickly, so you see the lightning, then you hear the thunder later. So the difference between the thunder and the lightning tells you how far away the storm is. So if you're too close to a thunderstorm, thunder and lightning will be very close together. Though in the Alpine Symphony, Strauss has what I think must be a lightning bolt with a shrieky piccolo, and then almost immediately a big clap of thunder, and that really sums up the kind of, that's a bit close for comfort. You know, you might imagine your hair standing on end, perhaps because you're in the electric field of the thunderstorm.
Richard Strauss wasn't the only musician who needed the extremes of a particular climate to inspire him. Composers from across Europe and the States have often found that when there's low pressure, it induces a kind of composing frenzy. I wondered, though, if there was a particular kind of climate that made the perfect musical storm. Just how much does it matter if the storms you experience are violent and climactic, or just damp and miserable? Karen Aplin.
There are two major different types of storm in weather and in the types of storms represented in music. So we have convective storms and frontal storms. So a convective storm is the type of storm that will generate thunder and lightning, which is usually due to it being a warm day and the air rising and there being lots of motion in the air and eventually a big thundercloud developing. The other type of storm, the frontal storm, is more to do with the bigger weather systems. We get a lot of them in the UK coming in off the Atlantic, so when you see the weather and you see the isobars packed close together, and the fronts, that is the frontal type of storm, and that quite often comes in from the west into northern Europe and brings wind and rain, occasionally thunder and lightning, but usually just wind and rain.
So Richard Strauss is always going to give you a convective storm, and Benjamin Britten's always going to give you a frontal storm.
That is what we found.
The Storm from Peter Grimes is a piece that we do a lot, actually. It's often done as an encore by BBC Symphony Orchestra. And I must say, I've never become tired of it. It always seems so original. The rhythms, the way the phrases are broken up, you know, that's very exciting. Also, the orchestration is absolutely immaculate. There's that stretto all the time, you know, as we say, where the rhythms gather speed. This effect of the waves, you know, lashing in sort of contrary directions.